Our first guest has been called the Queen of Cookbooks because she's co-written so many, including The Art of Living According to Joe Beef. Now she's launching her first solo cookbook, described by Vogue as a passionate exploration of all things Alpine and a must-have for every ski bum foodie.
Please welcome the author of Alpine Cooking Recipes and Stories from Europe's Grand Mountaintops, Meredith Erickson.
Thank you so much.
This book feels like it's a one-of-a-kind book. It's so unique. It's not just recipes. The photographs are stunning. There are travel stories, travel tips. So much went into making this, I'm assuming. Can you tell us?
So much. So this was 6 to 7 years of travel. Wow. Yeah, and I went through Austria, Switzerland, Italy, and France. And originally I thought it was going to be, 200 pages, take 2 years. But then I realized along the way that no book had been written in English about the Alps.
Oh my goodness.
So it was up to me to do it.
Yeah,
so
I did an extraordinary job.
Okay, so for our first stitch, we are going to Switzerland, where I always do have this kind of quintessential picture of like people huddled around a fondue dish, and with cheese or chocolate or any of those things. And that's what you brought today, the cheese fondue. So what makes this one so special?
Okay.
Yes, let's applaud the fondue.
The fondue that we're doing today is a Neuchâtel fondue. That's our baseline fondue, and that means Emmental and Gruyere. But if you do go to the Swiss Alps, the best thing is that in every region, they'll do only their local cheeses that have no outside allocation. So it's kind of like a boutique cheese experience.
Okay. We did fondues back in the day, and I think we just threw some cheese in and melted it down. I'm sure there's a more nuanced way of doing that. How did you prepare this?
Okay, so this is half Emmental, half Gruyere, a lot of Kirsch, which is cherry brandy, half a bottle white wine. You could go more white wine if you want, and then white pepper and nutmeg.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Divine.
Excuse me, I'm just going to
Go ahead and try. You say, Meredith, fondue has so many rules. In fact, there's nothing else that has more rules than fondue, which is very Swiss, by the way. But tell us more about this. How did you go about preparing this?
Okay, so I think, first of all, fondue is a state of mind.
Yes.
It's a state of mind. You have to be there. I think you want, for the rules, are you in the zone? You're in the zone. The rules, I think I always like to have a vintage pot like this. I don't like to go with stainless steel or aluminum. This is what you want. Rule number 1, always rub the pot with garlic to start.
Oh, okay.
Rule number 2, do not double dip. Gross. No double dipping.
Fair enough.
Rule number 3, at the very beginning, don't go to the bottom of the pot because those little pieces of crispy cheese are called la religieuse, and you want to keep them for the very end to kind of savor them.
Oh, okay.
Love that. So it turns out like you use your fondue pot for other things as well, which maybe would justify getting one for a lot of people. What else do you use it for?
Yeah, I think that these pots should not be kind of a one and done situation. I think, so I like to do 2 recipes. The first is with a sirloin, a steak, I'll do my béarnaise on the side, and I'll just keep the béarnaise in the side pot. The second thing, the best tip, if you're doing the fondue recipe, have it at the very end, crack in 2 eggs and make the most unctuous scrambled eggs with that cheese. That's at the end.
Really good idea.
Good.
That's a gorgeous idea. I've got a soft spot for Italy, so of course I loved your section on the Italian Alps, which you describe as, of all the Alpine countries, Italy offers the softest landing because people are warm, the ski hills are so well managed, and of course the food. The food is pretty good. So I can't wait to try this Italian bread soup with chicory and egg. I've never had anything like this, I don't think. Tell us about it.
Sure. So this is my favorite kind of soup recipe, which means it's a blender recipe.
Yeah.
It's very simple, but it's a puccia bread from Italy that you make, and then you blend with vegetable broth, pancetta, onions. We've used dandelion greens today, but you should do it with chicory if you can, egg, and then some of that bread you're going to fry up as croutons at the end.
My goodness, it is so rich. This is like... people who say that soup isn't a meal, this is a meal.
This is a meal.
This keeps you warm. This is gorgeous.
Yeah, but it's also very healthful. There's nothing bad in this soup.
What I love, as Jess enjoys that, I love that in your recipe book, you actually ranked your recipes in order of difficulty, much like ski runs are marked with colors and shapes on the ski hills. so smart. It's so smart. So I want to know, where does this soup rank?
This soup is an easy. The soup is a blue run.
It's a bunny hill.
It's a bunny hill.
It's a bunny hill. I could do that. But
I do that. So the blue line would be easy, medium, and then difficult is the black line.
Okay.
Love it.
There is so much detail of topography in the book. When you're writing it, were you motivated by the food or the scenery or both? Like, which came first?
I think that food in itself is never the story. In any of the books I've done, with the Joe Beef books, especially with this book, the recipes are meant to be a punctuation along the journey, you know, to really underline where we are in that moment. So the people, the authenticity, the scenery, the food, it's all part of the same thing for me.
That's nicely said. I love
We
that.
can't have you here talking about the Alps, Meredith, and not get into something I love, and that's Wiener Schnitzel. I
Yes.
love it. I can only imagine how amazing yours is because you put a lot of research into it. So while I dive in, tell us about your technique.
Okay, so I think I've probably in my journeys had over 200 schnitzels.
Whoa.
And people always ask, what's your favorite one? And I always say, it's the last one I had. But my technique is it's to souffle the schnitzel. So what we're trying to achieve is that air pocket between the meat and the breading. And how we do that is not flipping the meat. So we're going to have it in either peanut oil or canola oil, and you're either going to baste it with a spoon, or if you feel comfortable, kind of move the pan around. And that's the oil's gonna continually covering it, oxygen's gonna get in that air pocket, and that's when you know. 3.5 minutes, you're at your schnitzel peak.
Delicious. It's so
Is it so
light.
good?
Oh, it's delicious.
But out of those 200 research schnitzels,
Yeah.
there must have been one that
There
stood
is.
out.
There's one, yeah.
Which one?
At Elmhofschneider in Lech.
Ooh, say that again. Do it again.
Elmhofschneider.
Oh, yes.
In Lech, Austria. So if you fly into Zurich, 2 hours east, you're there. And they achieve all of those those things that I was just saying with that air pocket. It's the lightness, you know, it's just delicious.
Wow, beautiful.
So clearly, Meredith, you love an adventure, and you share so many stories, though, of mishaps and of terrible ski situations. Why did you want to include those stories?
Because I made so many mistakes during this book, and you know, it's not going to the Alps is not like Disneyland. They're not doing anything for you. And so, for example, if you're going to travel to Cortina d'Ampezzo, where the 2026 Olympics are going to be, you should fly into Venice. But obviously, you need to drive through the Alps to get to your different locations. And in Venice, they don't have four-wheel drive and they don't have snow chains. So in the book, I have these travel hacks of where to rent the car, because I went down a hill many, many times into a snowbank.
Oh my God.
Driving was always way more complicated than skiing.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Hey, we're going to end our journey appropriately on dessert, and this is one that is inspired by the Mont Blanc mountain in France, not the pen. So you have actually created something that looks like the mountain itself. What is this?
Okay, so Mont Blanc is a classic French pastry. What you have is a pastry shell, and then you have a mascarpone cream, and then the key is you do a little meringue cap in the middle, and that's going to build your structure. And over top of the meringue cap, you're using a piping bag. You're going to do a chestnut puree.
So this is the chestnut puree, the little like...
It looks like noodles.
Yeah,
The spaghetti is the chestnut puree with a candied chestnut on top, some powdered sugar. I find that chestnut is a very polarizing flavor. You either love it or hate it.
Right now, I am so in love.
loving it.
It's not very sweet at all.
No,
It's
that's the
very
thing.
delicate. It's very, very light. I love it.
Okay, when you think of the Alps, you tend to picture like a luxury trip, like, you know, with all of the stunning pictures that you have in here. But you say that traveling can be quite actually accessible.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my working thesis for this book was the mountains are democratic and the mountains are for everyone. And so I have an address book at the back of the book, and it's all of the locations that are family run over generations. Some of these places have been started in the year 1100.
Whoa.
And it's really easy on a budget. It's not difficult. And, you know, that's the way that I did it. And I want everyone to kind of have that same experience.
Meredith, thank you so much for coming and sharing these lovely recipes with us. You're going to want to check out these Alpine recipes, so head to thesocial.ca right after the show, and we'll be right back.